Good morning. This is the House Appropriations Committee. Excuse me. It is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. It's about 11:45 or so, and we are going to have a run through of H 545, which passed out of the Human Services Committee yesterday on a vote of 10-1-0. And so we've asked Katie McGuinn from Legislative Council to run through the bill with us. We are being asked to take a straw poll. We're not going to have possession of this because there doesn't actually really appear to be any money, but there maybe could have been at some point, possibly, if you squinted. So that's why we're just doing a straw poll and a run through, and it'll be going to the floor on notice today, on the floor Thursday and Friday. So H 545. Katie, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Katie McGuinn, Office of Legislative Counsel. I have the committee report of Human Services pulled up on the screen. I guess I should just take a step back and we'll do a high level because I'm sure you're not wanting to go through all of this language. So currently, a lot of the language in Vermont statute around recommended immunization schedules is tied to the CDC. What this bill does is uncouples that relationship between recommended immunizations and the CDC, and instead has the Vermont Commissioner of Health making the recommendations on the schedule for the state of Vermont. These are not required immunizations. This is the recommended schedule for children and adults. And the way the commissioner does this is through consultation with an existing Vermont-based immunization group, and Human Services has updated some of the membership of that committee. It also directs the commissioner to consult with or review existing schedules and recommendations from different professional groups, including the CDC. So CDC, American Pediatric Association, American Family Medicine Practitioners. There's a list that the commissioner has to review prior to issuing recommendations for Vermont. What's noteworthy is that this change is in effect until 2031. And then I don't want to say revert entirely, but we go back to the structure that's in place now, whereby Vermont statute is coupled with the CDC recommendations again. So this bill, I think, looks longer than, it looks intimidating at 24 pages, but half the bill is sort of going back to language that is currently in effect now. So what this does is right now it allows the Department of Health to purchase immunizations from the CDC. This would still allow that to happen, but would also allow immunizations to be purchased at other vendors at the lowest cost if at some point the CDC is not offering immunizations that the CDC doesn't recommend, but the Department of Health does, for example. It allows right now reimbursement for healthcare is tied to the CDC recommendations. The consumer doesn't pay for the immunization. It's covered by insurers. So this would ensure that the recommended immunizations as determined by the Commissioner of Health would still be free of charge to the consumer. Similarly, authorizations for pharmacists are tied to the CDC recommendations, and this would allow pharmacists to provide the same, and pharmacy technicians to provide the same immunizations or have the same authority. But instead of with regard to the CDC recommendations, it would be the Commissioner of Health's recommendations. So that's high level, but those are sort of the major things that this bill does.
Any questions so far? Wayne, do you have a question? You look like you have a question.
Well, I see what's going on. I don't know that I approve. But Going to the other sources for vaccines, is there any risks there that we're not getting the quality, vaccine quality, or is that all tied together? Does it all come out of the same pot? And
Meaning if the Department of Health were to purchase immunizations from another vendor besides the CDC, that question did come up in Human Services. The Commissioner of Health, I remember, responded to it. I'm not a medical person, but the commissioner said that they're very specific with the recommendations in terms of like specific type serial numbers that they would be purchasing to ensure that it's not just any flu immunization, but this specific. Yeah.
Lots of,
Yeah.
lots of material.
There was also an advisory council. Did you mention that?
I did. There are actually two. They're both existing. There's one that looks at funding for immunizations. That's an existing statute. And it is a way of calculating the per member per month payments that the health insurers pay into the Department of Health's existing immunization program. So these calculations are ongoing now. So there really were no changes to that group other than sort of organizational and grammatical. There's a lot of cross out to the group, but the membership itself is mostly the same, maybe some changes to how the appointments are happening. The second group is the group that is helping the commissioner develop recommendations. That is also an existing group. However, there are many more changes to the membership of that committee now that it would be taking on this new role of recommending this schedule to the commissioner.
And that's where this is the part that often comes to us because there's a council and there'd be per diems, but there's no per diems in this. It's all part of everybody's job, so there's no cost from the general fund to have this happen.
That question, will this be putting additional burdens on staff so that we incur additional costs within the agency?
For the health department? I think you'd have to ask the health department. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I do know that it is the health department that's proposing the change though, so.
This health department's asking for this.
Yes.
I would just point out that I have had some constituents bring to my attention page 7, where there is an immunity for civil and administrative liability for immunization caused adverse events to the person that administers the immunization. And some folks object to that.
Thank you. I can talk a little bit about that. So this is language, it was referred to House Judiciary and they looked at this particular paragraph. Excuse me, I can walk you through this. A healthcare professional who prescribes, dispenses, or administers.
Sorry, which line?
I'm at the bottom of bottom of page 6.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's on page 7.
A healthcare professional who prescribes, dispenses, or administers an immunization in accordance with the recommendations issued pursuant to subsection A of this section shall be immune from civil and administrative liability for immunization-caused adverse events unless the healthcare's professional actions regarding prescribing, dispensing, or administering an immunization constituted gross negligence, recklessness, or intentional misconduct. So in other words, if a prescriber, if a healthcare professional is working within their scope of practice and they're following the recommended immunization schedule set forth by the commissioner, and there is an adverse reaction as a result of an immunization that was given appropriately through the recommended schedule, this provides immunity to that healthcare professional. If that healthcare professional, on the other hand, if the act of administering the immunization, prescribing, or dispensing constituted gross negligence, recklessness, or intentional misconduct, this immunity would not cover those actions and behaviors.
Is that kind of what we have now?
So this language was pulled in part from the opioid antagonist statute. There's similar language that a person who is providing an opioid antagonist in good faith and following the appropriate procedures has this type of immunity. So the language was based on that.
And most medical practitioners have some sort of immunity unless except for gross negligence. I mean, sort of in general, that we have.
They have probably insurance.
They have malpractice insurance, but nothing's gonna get paid up if you were grossly negligent or.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like a Good Samaritan kind of provision.
Well, yeah, or you won't be covered if you were actually grossly negligent. Correct. You're not, regardless.
But if the operation didn't go as you expected, then typically you can't sue the doctor. Unless you can.
Right, like they cut off the wrong leg or
Right,
something
right.
like that. I mean, that's pretty, exactly. Go ahead, Dave.
Marty, I had heard from some folks who had some concerns on this provision. And I read, and I couldn't understand why. Is there a backstory here I'm not understanding? You know?
I don't know the backstory. I think the information from the people, I gathered that their concern was that the practitioners ought to know that a certain immunization may indeed have a lot of potential problems, and therefore they should not be prescribing. They should not be using this immunization. And so they want them to be liable and meet their RX.
I see. Another focus, did you address informed consent?
For immunization?
Is it in this bill at all, or did you speak?
No, not particularly. This bill itself doesn't require any immunizations. It's just setting out the recommendations.
Of what can be used,
Yeah,
right?
How decisions are gonna be made about what is recommended, so nothing's required.
Hence there's no informed consent, I guess.
But, when I go and get my COVID shot or my flu shot, I have to sign about 6 different things that talk about the different drug interactions, and all those things happen now. And that doesn't change, because this is really only about where we're gonna get guidance on vaccinations from, in addition to the CDC.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lynn and then Wayne, and then we have to vote.
When you talk about, and hear about the no cost or no copays and all that, is there because you talked about insurances, are insurances required to pay this even though it's not part of the CDC anymore?
that's what this bill does, is instead
Makes them pay.
of coupling it to CDC recommendations for payment, it couples it with the Commissioner of Health's
So they're gonna pay the
recommendations.
bill for
Yes,
the patient, no matter what.
yes. Because of this change, because of the bill, it wouldn't happen otherwise. If you maintain the status quo as the law is right now, and the CDC had a narrower scope of recommended immunizations, then there would be no requirement on the health insurer to pay any immunizations outside of that CDC. Yeah, correct.
All right, thank you.
So do we have any, besides the practitioners' liability, do we have any other risk or liability come down from their only recommendations, but from not following CDC recommendations? I've dealt with the CDC and recommendations over the years, and usually citing those recommendations for justifying actions that I'm taking. Right? It's taken. So
I'm not totally following the question.
well, I'm asking if we're incurring any greater risk, for the state or for anybody in deviating from CDC recommendations.
I think the changes at the CDC are still sort of a little bit of a moving target. For example, in federal law, there's a vaccine adverse event compensation program. Right now, it's still covering all of the immunizations that were recommended prior to the most recent change by the CDC. I don't know if at some point that federal program might be narrowed to only cover what the CDC is recommending. But, you know, I think that potential is out there. Yeah.
So do we have enough of information to do a straw poll? Good on that. I don't think we need to take a roll call. If you're in favor, would you just raise your hand? Anybody opposed? I don't think so. Great, so this is 11-0. Katie, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lynn, I think this might be yours. Is this yours?
Yes.
Okay, so you can just say there was no money and we had a straw poll and it was 11-0. So that's all you need to say. Very short.
That's on today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'm not sure what's happening. I think it may be on notice today and then it'll be, yeah,
So tomorrow.
right,
Okay.
right. So we'll, thank you, Katie. I know where everybody's rushing today. This is just one of those days. I'm rushing to a meeting.